Today I'll get started with building the same thing using NestJS, which is a Node plus TypeScript framework, right? For the people who do not have the context, we're just joining in just to give you a little bit of idea. So we discussed this social media clone that we're going to be building. We just for fun we called it Moo, and the idea is it is going to be a lot like Twitter. There's going to be 240 character texts, and people can post, and then they can reshare the posts, and people can follow each other. But largely the main features that Twitter has, right? We have this URL that I'll just share with you people. If you're there, we'll do that. So we have discussed what data entities we would need. You need users, you need posts, notifications, hashtags, and we have done a little bit of basic database design as well. So we had already had a session where we did a database design session where we discussed what tables we will need. So the tables are detailed there, the columns and all, which columns would be there, or the data definition. So that part of the system design we had actually done. And we also have like a data diagram that I think Shubhadeep had posted there. Plus, what APIs we need, that also we had already discussed. So that's also sort of detailed there. There's the, we would have a get endpoint for user slash username to get a user, to get a user ID, to create a new user, to fetch the feed, fetch one particular post, then the hashtags. So a lot of those things are actually defined. So it's going to be very, very easy to get started with. In today's session, what we'll do is we will get started with the basic project structure, set up the database, set up the framework and all of that stuff. Okay. Plus, if you want to be involved in this project over the longer time, I mean, today we'll have a 1 hour, maybe 2 hours live stream where we build part of it and we'll continue to build it. We have, our Discord. So most of the discussion actually happens here. So this is the Scalar Discord. You can join on, you can go to discord.gg/scalar to join our Discord server. People who are not on this live stream and who don't know about Discord. So here there is a channel called Talk Open Source, and on that we generally do all the discussion about our open source projects that we are working on. Okay, let's get started. Actually, let's get started building it. So create a new folder and all. So feel free to ask me anything on the chat, anything that you couldn't understand. Anurag has asked why TypeScript. So these days most industry level applications they are using bigger Node.js projects. They're moving to TypeScript because there is that type safety available, and it's a little easier to manage when you're having a bigger team and a bigger project. So that's why TypeScript is sort of preferred these days. Why Nest framework? We did a project, by the way. We just also have another project along with this going on, which is we're creating a URL shortener, and that uses Express. That uses Node.js and TypeScript only, but it uses Express, plain Express. So it does not use Nest as a framework. It's a more simpler project. The endpoints there actually are defined as well. So just URLs can be shortened, and then based on the short URL, it can be redirected to the long URL. So general use URL shortener kind of thing. This Twitter clone one, I believe it will turn out to be a little bigger project, and Nest provides, a proper project structure that there are clearly defined controllers and services and so on. And I'm going to be developing this as if I'm building my first Nest.js project. So I will try to build it like that. So you see the approach. Like I will be following the documentation out here. Just whatever I don't know, I'll look it up from here. So you will see what's the process. So like how do actually developers are working on new frameworks, how do they work? So I think to get started, I think we have to sort of install the NestJS CLI. So I'll do that. Right, and using the CLI, we will basically scaffold our first new project. That's essentially the idea. Okay. Just quickly checking the text size and everything. I hope is fine that you people can see. So let's see. So to build a new Nest project, apparently we have to do something like this: Nest new and project name. So I'll do like that: Nest new, and let's call it Move backend node. We can call it Twitter backend node itself. That's also fine. go with npm as my package manager. And as I keep building it, what I will do is I'll just create a GitHub repository and upload it, and I'll just share that link on the chat with all of you people, so that as you're following the video, every little bit that I'm writing, I'll just keep committing it and pushing it there, so you should be able to see that. Prabhat, can you draw a parallel between some similar frameworks in other languages? So it's a lot like how Ruby on Rails works, NestJS, I believe, and also like Django. So it's a more structured framework compared to something like Express, where we build the routes by hand and we create the any ORM we want to, we can use like that. So it's more constrained, more structured, which means that generally, like if you have two projects both written in Express, they might be very different in their project structure. But if you have two projects written in Nest.js, their project structures would be much similar to each other, because the way you do everything is more well defined. Okay. So, Sayan has asked about scalability. Scalability really comes from the design of the project and not from the code of the project, right? There are smaller scalability things to keep in mind when we are working on it. We will discuss those things. So we'll put those things when we are coding that. But more of the larger scalability stuff actually we had done when we are discussing the system. So, for example, how the hashtags would be stored, we had done that discussion. And like I said, if you want to, stay connected and be part of more such discussions of our open source projects, we regularly have discussions on system design, database design, as well as we have sessions like these where we're going to be actually coding it live. So, be connected over our Discord server, discord.gg/scalar, that is. So some of the scalability side things, like how to cache things and all, are actually we discussed that, and that's incorporated in the database design. But we will discuss some of those things as we are coding it as well. Okay, so that's a project gotten created, and just okay, I'll just share the link of the GitHub repository as well. Okay, so just shared it on Discord, and as well as shared it on the chat. There's the GitHub repository link. Please just open it, keep it open in parallel. As I keep coding it, I'll do small updates and commit it there, so you can follow the code via that. Okay, so first things first, if I look at the project that has just been generated. So at this stage, the project that has been generated, it contains a few files already. There's an SRC folder. The SRC folder contains in the main.ts, which is how the app sort of starts. There is a bootstrap function which loads the app, and the app is going to listen on channel port 3000. To build or run this project, there are steps in the package.json file. So if you run build, it creates the project, right? So in fact, if I just do that, let me. So if I just run npm run build, right? It generates a project in the dist folder actually, right? So the project is written in TypeScript. It generates a JavaScript Node.js project out of that if I run build. To run the project, we can do npm run, and there is start. So it's the normal start. But we can also run start colon dev, which means it will watch my files, and every time I make some changes, it will automatically change them. So if I do npm run start, yes, generally for development purposes, you use start or start dev. Then if I go to basically, something like localhost 3000, as my app is actually running, it's just hello world. That's the only route that's defined. It's defined in the controller. So in the controller, it's defined that, there's a get hello function, which there's a service. So it's a little more complicated. So I'll explain. So controllers define the routes, and if you have not defined any particular path, then it's going to respond on the slash path on every path. But if I say that this is the slash xxx path, or something like hello path, right? In this case, what will happen is that if I open the normal path, I'll see I'm not getting anything. Sorry, yeah, it started now. So if I go to the normal 3000 path, it says, cannot get like this. Okay. But if I go to slash hello, then the hello world path actually comes up. So the get annotation here, these kind of things are called annotation. Now, in plain JavaScript, Node.js, you might not have seen something like this, but if you have used something like Kotlin or Java, then you know what annotations are, and time TypeScript annotations exist. So using annotation, we can actually tell which path it is for, and then this is the function. Now inside this function, we can actually return directly a string. We can return hey there, something like this. Okay, right. So if we do this, in that case, that's what will get returned here. As you can see, it says hey there. But instead of doing that, what the code that is automatically generated by the project, it says this dot app service dot get hello. So what's this app service thing? It's basically our business logic, like what is supposed to be returned and all that logic is separated into services. Okay. So essentially, like how the app structure looks like is that whenever any request comes in, the request would be coming into a controller. The controllers would call a function inside a service class to actually run some logic and return from there. The service might in turn actually look into some repository for data. Repositories are to connect to your databases. Okay, that's the largely what the structure looks like. Okay, now let's say I want to build some controllers here. How to do that? Let's just start with, okay, we know that we have to build this particular API, right? Let me just put separately here. Yeah, right. So we know that we have to build these APIs. We have to build a get users API, get user slash user ID APIs, post patch, put these, for example, APIs we need to build. Okay. So for that, we'll need to make a controller for each of these APIs. And for the database stuff, we will have to create entities. Okay. So what I will do is I will first create the controllers, then I will create the entities, and then I will connect them using services between them. Okay. So let's create controllers first and see how that happens. And to build controllers, what do we need to do? So, this is what controllers do. Any HTTP request that comes, they basically hit a controller. That's the essence of a controller. How to create a controller using the CLI. So, there are apparently, so to quickly create a controller, we can use NestG resource, something like that is given. To build controllers, what we do is we add like this nest G. G is for generate. If you just write nest, it will tell you what kind of things you can use. Okay. You can generate controllers, and how to generate a controller. It's an option, it's a name, all of that. So let's do that. We need a controller for users. Definitely need a controller for users. So nest G. Okay. If I just do that, it creates a users folder and it creates a user controller inside that. Okay. And it writes some test cases also for that. Now, to also explain why I prefer something like NestJS a lot is that whenever say controller gets created, the test case for that is also automatically generated. So unit tests are automatically generated for you. You create a controller, test case is generated for you. Okay, and lint rules also already exist. So there is a ESLint rule file. So lint rules also exist for you, which means that for example, I was just a little while ago, I was writing this that, if I write something like, return hello world, if I write with double quotes instead of single quote, it underlines that, it says that according to our linting service, we are supposed to write with, single quote. And it can also be quickly fixed. Okay. So when you create an SJS project, it comes sort of, like they say, in batteries included. There is linting service available so that your code is clean. There is a test available so that, you always create good test-driven development you're doing. And, people who are sort of contributing to this project, they also have to follow those, lint rules and they need to pass the test cases. So a much more structured project gets built. Okay. So we need a users controller. We'll just get around to what all endpoints we need in them as well. But we need a users controller. We need a posts controller, and we need a hashtags controller. Couple of things in the chat. So ethical programmer says unit testing with Jest is very easy to integrate. That's very correct. That we can integrate Jest very easily, and we can integrate dependency injection very easily. But zero is always better than easy, right? We don't have to integrate them when you're using Node.js. It's already integrated. Not having to integrate is always better than easy to integrate. Easy is better than hard. Already integrated is better than still easy. Okay. So we've got hashtags, we have got a controller for that, posts and users. Okay. Then what are the endpoints that we need? So we'll just build those as well. So we need a get hashtags kind of a thing here. So that would look like, hashtag one, there would be a controller for, we write like this, get, and you can basically write a function there, which is basically, get top hashtag or something like that, get top. Okay. How does the controller for the app controller basically look like? You have to define what's going to be the return type there. So I'm just going to say, right, that the return type is going to be of type string for now. And, I'll write a to do. Okay. Now, as soon as you make something like this, if I just sort of, run my project is actually already running. It should be already running with all the changes, right? So if I go to slash hashtags at this point, slash hashtags. Let me just quickly run it again. So we have the hashtags controller added. Let's see if hashtags it's working. Hashtags and get request to slash hashtags. Okay, that does not seem to work. Oh, I think I made a spelling mistake this side. Hashtags, yeah. So that's how we basically add new root endpoints. Like you create a root.get or app.get kind of thing in Express. Here we do it using hashtags, like controllers like this. So let me quickly add the skeleton, the dummy controllers right now without adding any logic. So let me do all that, and I will make a commit at that level that okay, we have added the controllers. So we have created hashtags. We had this is one controller. We need another for get hashtag slash tag and post. So how do we add parameters in the root? So let's check that as well. Controllers, and we can add root wildcards like this is also possible. And I believe that root parameters like this are also possible, right? With the it's pretty much like how it works in Express as well. By the way, NestJS internally uses Express. Okay, so we'll do get slash tag and then post. So that's the one we want, right? Hashtags slash tag slash posts. That's something we want. How do I use this tag, right? So to use that, we just do params like this. So we write show all posts with hashtag param dot tag. Okay. So let's see if that works. Okay. Now, if we try to go to hashtags slash given a tag name and then slash posts, which would be like going to this place, hashtags slash say JavaScript slash posts to show all posts with hashtag JavaScript. So, I mean, basically the root is working. We will have to obviously write the actual logic here as well later. So I'm just keeping that for that. So okay, how's it gonna look like? So if you look at the repository now, I've added the first commit. So later on, when you're browsing this repository after you watch this video, whether you're watching it live right now, whether you watch this recorded video later, so you can mostly browse the repository via the commits pretty well. That okay, these are the steps. So this is how the controllers were added. So when the controllers were added, what all things happened. So the controller files itself got added. This is the get hashtag part, the get post for hashtag part, all of that stuff. And another thing that happened is that in the app module.ts file, which is basically this file, app module.ts. So inside the module file, we have to sort of write which controllers we are using. So originally only the app controller was getting used, as you can see. Now the user controller, the post controller, the hashtag controller, they are all getting used. Okay. We'll do the rest of the controller stuff very soon. A couple of things, like when you're creating an open source project like this, it's good to have, I'll just show that if you look at the NestJS project itself, right? These labels are actually generated from there. So if you go to, NestJS GitHub, it's a big open source project. They generally have all of these, set of labels, and also these labels tell a lot of things. One of them is like, say, whether build is passing or not, whether how many downloads it has or not. So downloads and all we'll see later, but and what's the code coverage and all. So there are a bunch of websites where code coverage is shown, and CI websites where it shows that whether the app was able to build or not. So to do those things, I think we should also set the similar set of things up for us, and I will actually delete the stuff here from the top. Okay. Now we would want to set it up in such a way that whenever I make a push or something like that, it gets sort of built. So we can set up some of those things, which at a very early stage for an open source project, it's great to have. That using GitHub Actions, we will build our project. Okay. And we will run some tests as well, and we'll make sure that if somebody sends a pull request, then those tests are also run, lints pass, so and so, right? So let's do that actually. So GitHub action for Node.js, let me just search. So obviously there is some information available here. So you have to create a folder here. Sorry, at the outset itself, we create a folder dot GitHub slash workflows. And in GitHub slash workflows, we create a file node.js dot yml. Let's just say we create something called node.js dot yml. Okay. So here's what the node.js dot yml file should generally look like. We'll run node.js CI on push on a main branch and pull request on the main branch. So ideally, a branch should also be called main, but we have called it master. So when during the Black Lives Matter movement, there was a bit of discussion about having the main branch called as main rather than master, which we can also do. So I think it's a new laptop. I've forgotten doing that on Git by default. Master is the default branch that's generated. We can fix that for this project. We can fix that forever as well. So we can do git config default branch name. I think I change that. Yeah, I think we just run this command. So if we do that, then our git config file contains default branch name main. So in future, whatever repositories we will make, the main branch would be called main rather than master. How to change it for our repository? We should also do that for our repository. I'm just taking a little bit of time out because it's a good thing to do. People say that it's not good to use racist terminologies. So we should also, do our little bit of effort into that. How to change branches? Little menu over here. So what we'll do, we'll create a new branch, git checkout b main. Okay. So we are now on the main branch instead of the master branch. Okay. So I'll just commit some of the things that we had done, add readme and GitHub actions. Okay. Then what we'll do git push origin main. Okay. So now master and main both are pushed. We will do is we will delete the master branch locally. So now I don't have master branch on my computer, but the remote still has it. So to do that, what I have to do is in my repository, I have to go to the settings and I have to change the default branch to main. Should be a place to do that and go to branches. And default branch is, we can choose main as the default branch. Okay. Now once that is done, we can do is git push origin. And if I write push nothing to master, it basically deletes the master from origin. Okay, so master branch is deleted from origin, and you can see it only has main branch and no master branch. Good thing to do. Okay. So we want to test on maybe Node.js 14 and 16, latest versions of Node.js available. So it will check out and run npm CI and it will run npm build. Great. We do have a test as well. So if you want to, test, we can do that as well. So npm run test. If I run, it actually runs the all the tests of my project. It actually runs tests using jest only. So all the files which are .spec.ts, and those are all test files. Right now, they only contain mostly mock tests. Okay, all the tests are passing. So if I want tests to be run as well, we can do this thing. We can go to our GitHub workflow, and okay, it's already running build and it's already running test. So awesome, actually. Every time I push, it's gonna test that the project is in a buildable state right now or not. Okay. We can now add a little badge for that. So how to add that badge here? GitHub action badge. Let's see how to do that. So that's how the badges are made. So I'll just add one here. So my workflow is node.js.yml, node.js.yml, and it's building. So I add a badge for that. Okay. So now if I see my repository, there should be this badge. It's not visible yet. Oh, sorry. I have to change the repository name. Repository is Scalar Academy / Twitter backend node. There we go. So that says that Node.js CI is passing, which so anybody comes to this repository, they would know that my build is passing. So they can download this project and they can also try to build, and it should work. So this is a validation of the fact that okay, my builds are passing, which is sort of important. Okay. Cool. Now we will just continue with the rest of the things that we're doing. So we will continue with the controllers, the other controllers. We have a users controller to build. This is supposed to have, let's see if it works like this or not. So I'm going to write here is that, and I'll have to add the params here as well. Okay. I'm going to try something and let's see if it works or not. Whether writing at the rate and then the parameter like this, whether it works like this or not, or I would have to sort of include the at the rate into my if condition or not. Let me try this out quickly. So just go and is it running? Yeah, it's still running, right? I'll just restart it anyway. Cool. So if I make a get request to /user/ Arnav. Okay, fantastic. So if I make a request to @Arnav, then it says get details of username Arnav, and if I send a request to some ID like this, it says details of user ID. So because it does pattern matching, so it's able to get these two. So these two are done. Post users to create a new user. So let me do that as well. I'll just actually add to do everywhere. Okay, now this is gonna be post. I'll add these to do everywhere so that later on I can see which ones are incomplete, right? Okay, so this should be about the update details of user ID, put and delete for follow to follow a user. So should be put /user ID. Okay, /users is not needed. That's already prefixed. /user ID /follow. If I make a put request here, so follow user. Similarly, there should be one for delete. Okay. Then we have got get followers and get followees. Okay. So we have got user ID /followers to get all the followers of user. Put /user ID /followees. Okay. So great. So mostly the endpoints that we need for users are done. I'll just make a commit for that. Okay. Continuing from where we left off, building the users controller. So yeah, I think the user follower mostly has been all done. I have pushed the code for that as well. So this is the benefit of, by the way, the actions thing is that, if you go to actions and you can see all the commits that I have done. So on every commit, it runs the, build and test job. It just runs the test, and you can see the output of the test as well, like, controller spec has passed, hashtag spec has passed, all that stuff. Right. Okay, let's go ahead. So I have done the controller part for users. The post one is left. Post has only a few endpoints, so let me quickly do that, and then we will start building the entities and connecting to the database. So for the users, for the posts, post controller, we need get flush, and we'll say that get all. Yeah, I think get post slash post ID slash. Okay, then this is to create a new post. So we need a post endpoint on slash create new post. This is to delete a given post. Okay. And we need to like a post and unlike a post. So these two are needed. Put on slash post ID slash like post. And quite similar to unlike a post. Just need a delete endpoint for that. Good. So delete endpoint post unlike this post. Good. Post controller is also done. Great. Now we'll start creating the database side of things. So how to create the database side of things? Let's quickly check. So to use databases, we need, I think, type ORM. So we'll do it using type ORM to use databases. So we'll install type ORM, and instead of MySQL, I'm using Postgres here. That's a more commonly used enterprise level standard database. What I also commonly used when most projects I do. Although in our project, actually, it does not really matter which database we use a lot because type ORM being an ORM, it wraps over both MySQL and Postgres. So you could use either database and your code base would still look similar. Okay. So we'll do is npm install, and we need to install type ORM, and we also need a nest slash type ORM package actually. Okay, this is okay using databases. In fact, this is a better way of doing it. So we'll use NestJS slash type ORM plus type ORM and PG and PGH store. Okay. Once that's done, we will have to install a type ORM module. Okay. So we'll do that. So we'll do stuff like this. We'll create a ORM config.json, which will contain details about which entities to load and all that stuff. So we'll add a new file, orm config.json. Type would be Postgres, localhost 33. These things are not needed actually because it default port it will use. I need to create a username, password, and database. That is important. Or if I don't use a orm config, then also there are some options. I'll just do it. Let's say not use orm config. So first of all, let me create a database. So I will do is create database moodb. I will just write these commands down in the README to set up database. So create database moodb, then create user move admin with encrypted password. Create user move admin with encrypted password, just password. Okay, that also works. And then we'll do is grant all privileges on database MoveDB to MoveAdmin. Okay, so create database MoveDB, that's the first command. Then to create a user, we have to use this command. So I'll write that down, and we have to grant the privileges to the database. So it will this. Okay. Now to connect the database, what we need to do is in my app module.ts apparently I have to do mod imports. I have to do type orm module dot for root, and I have to pass these options here. So the options are basically type Postgres, username would be moadmin, password would be just what we created right now a little while back, right? Database name would be MoDB. We will synchronize. And I will also add logging, okay? So I'll add logger to be of type advanced console and logging all, okay? So I will log everything, okay? So we created the type ORM module stuff. And you have to create this entities thing. Now entities are where we'll add our entities. So we will add those entities. So to create the entities, what we do is essentially nest generate. Well, I think we can't generate entities as such because there is no recipe for generating entities. You have to create them by hand. There is no way to create entities. We can just simply go to users. And what are the entities that we need? Essentially, these are the entities we need. We need users, we need posts, we need hashtags, likes, blah, blah, blah. So let's create users, for example. So to create an entity in type ORM, think they would not have given an example. Yeah. So we do it like this, entity export class. So we define our tables in form of classes and the fields inside them, ID, first name, last name, these are basically the columns. Okay. So that's how type ORM works. Type ORM is a object-oriented ORM. So it's a class-based one. So you create proper classes and fields and all, and then it does strict type checking and everything. So I'll do that. So we need for user, we need ID. So, yeah. So we need an ID. So there is a documentation of typeorm on typeorm.io, by the way, where we can get more details about how to define entity. Entities can sort of inherit and all as well as it is shown. We can create abstract class and inherit from that and all that stuff. So there is a primary generated column where we can define some options, in fact, strategy. So strategy, we can use UUID, ID, which is gonna be of type string, right? Okay. What other things we need? We need a username. We need a name, avatar, bio, follower count, and verify. Now here's the thing. The entity's table name we can provide here. Basically, the name of the entity should be users, so we provide that there. The name of so follower count. These in my JavaScript code, is that I'm using camel case and not underscore case. So if that's the case, that I'm always using camel case and not underscore case, then it's better that I write follower count like this and followee count like this, or I can write just followers and follow, or I can just write the camel case thing. And in the decorator for this, I can write a column decorator of type string, and then I can write options like, so there are various ways we can write the column decorator. So column, you write the type, and then you write, these other things. So name becomes, so here we can define the actual column name, which is underscore case, but in our case, it's a camel case in our code. Start with default 0, let's just say. So similar would be for the case of followee count. Boolean column for verified. Bio would be text column. Text we can give sort of length of bio as 240, let's say. So username is capped at 30 and name at 50. So I'll add those two as well. This is capped at 30. This is capped at 50. We need to do another few things. So nullable should be false for username can't be null. Okay. And username must be unique as well. So okay. Name and all those things can apparently be null in follow account, and verified Boolean. That's done. Okay. Now, at this stage, if I just try to run my app, by the way, right, and I don't think it's already running. Let me just start this app. So it is running one command, which is start transaction information schema and all. But if I add this entity here, user entity, and save this. First of all, it sort of fails because unable to connect to database. So data type string is not supported in Postgres, dot username and all. So you have to change all of that to, we can do char varying. I think I can just not pass any data type. That should also probably work. And these are supposed to be number anyway, by the way. Okay, still have another function UUID generate v4 does not exist. So apparently for this we'll have to make some changes to Postgres. I will see that. So let's copy this error for a while. Function UUID generate does not exist. Let's check this. So there is a create extension if not exists UUID OSSP. We have to run this. So we have to select database MoDB and we have to add this extension. This is done and now it should start working. So Postgres by default does not have the UUID extension turned on, which I just turned on right now. So yeah, I think the user table gets created here, right? If I actually go to my database, right, and connect to MoDB, and I try to define my table. So there is the users table, and if I describe the users table here, this is ID, UUID, username, name, bio, all are character varying 30, 50, 250. Follower count, following count are integers, and verified is Boolean. Okay. Verified Boolean, I believe we want that verified Boolean should also have a a default value of false. So if we do those changes, that gets updated accordingly. That the verified column is supposed to show false default value. Okay. So that's how entities are created. This is my user entity having created. Cool. So the user's entity is done here. Let me commit this much. Okay. So we got the user entity working. We need to add a few more entities like this as well. Now, when I want to make a next entity, I would like to take a look at this base entity stuff, how to create a entity inheritance. So you can reduce duplication in your code by some entity inheritance stuff, which I want to do because as you would notice that posts also have ID, UID, and I want to have created at and updated at on every column. So let me do that. I'll do is, so I'll make a directory src slash commons and I will create something nest generate. I don't need to generate. I'll just go to commons and I will create a new file base dot entity dot ts. Okay. So base dot entity dot ts and here I will add these things. There's a content entity which contains these things which are going to be common there. So I can extend that. So I'll create a export abstract class base entity, and then we will do is add this column there, the ID column, which will add a create date column created at normal column options, right? And we need to update that column as well. So update that column. We can add deleted that column as well for those kind of cases. But anyway, great. So we need a move base entity like this. So we will do is extend user entity from move base entity. Okay. This should still create the same table naturally. Let's just ensure that. So yeah, it has created at and updated at columns as well. Right, an ID has been created. If I have to create the post column, so post would go into posts, and here there will be a new file post dot entity.ts. So entity of table name post export class. Hey, what do we need in a post entity? We already have the ID done. We need text of 240 characters. So I'll call it body or text, whatever. Yeah. So text is of type string. We need author. So we need an author foreign key relationship, and then let's see how to do those kind of things here now, right? To give a idea of what we did in the last 5 minutes of the last session, okay, there was simple stuff. Just added workflow file here. This thing, which does is you know there is it does run on Ubuntu with Node.js version 14 and 16, and it's gonna check out the project, and then it's gonna install and unbuild and then run test. Okay, so this it runs this test every time, and it runs this test every time. So if you go to actions now of that project, you can see that sorry, not this one. Okay. So you can go to actions, and you can see that every time I pushed, it runs the test, and every time the test runs, we can see which tests have passed. Right, report is sort of generated, and then as the report is generated, we have a badge which says that okay, Node.js CI is passing. So it gives somebody confidence, a new person who comes to this project and sees that okay, this project is in a building state. So if I git clone this and try to build it, it should build because on the CI it is building. Okay. Let me do the post entity, and then let me add something called code coverage, and then we'll discuss what is code coverage. So Ujjwal, you have a good question. So whether it's a good structure to put the controller and the entity in the same place. So there are two ways of structuring projects. One where we divide the code base in terms of type of files, and the other is where we divide it in terms of domain. Okay, so domain-wise division and typization. So how they would look like is that if I just open a new project. So say for this project, it would be like there's two ways of doing it. So inside SRC, let's say we would have controllers, we will have services, and we will have entities, and here we would have something like users dot entity.ts and post dot entity.ts. Okay, and we would have users. We might have services for liking as well. So follow dot service.ts, the follow related services, which does not have its own entity. Just the user entity is sufficient to do following, but let's just say like that. And then controllers, we might have controllers also in the users dot controller dot ts and post dot controller dot ts, etc. The other way of doing the same project is we do like this. We divide things by the domain. We write users and posts and hashtags. And then inside users, we have the users dot controller dot ts, we have the users dot service dot ts, and we have the users dot entity dot ts. Okay. And then we wrap that all together into something called a user.module.ts. Now, generally, this structure is what I prefer personally over this structure, because then you can create microservices out of this folder itself and then put it into another project very easily, because everything related to users are here. And then, user module becomes like a feature level division of your project. So we are dividing things in terms of features rather than in terms of layers. This is a layer wise division, right? So there's the entity layer in a folder, service layer in a folder, and controller layer in a folder. And essentially, when you make any kind of changes in users, you would have to change this file and this file and this file, all three. It's what I feel. Okay. And in this case, if you want to make user related changes, they would all happen inside this folder and might not touch changes in the other folders. So this is a feature wise division. This is a layer wise division. Both are fine to do. Many projects use type 1, many projects use type 2. I personally prefer to use this type 2 way of division when I'm making my projects. Hopefully that answers your question, right, Ujjwal? As you can see in my project right now, that's how I'm doing it. I'm putting post related stuff in post, user related stuff in user, and so on. And if there is something which I cannot really classify as any particular feature, I'll put them in the commons. Okay, so that was about the testing stuff. Anyway, continuing with the post entity, what are the things that we need to add? Images would be an array of string, so we'll see that images would be array of string type. We'll see how those things are handled. Likes count and repost count. So hashtags would be an array again. And mentions would be apparently an array as well. So not of string, but of something else. We can do is we can have a mention object here. It has a name of type string, and it has got ID of type UUID. So ID is also going to be of type string. So array of mention. Right. Images would be of type JSON actually. Like count would be of type number and all. Here the name would be like count. This would also be of type JSON, and this would also be of type JSON type. Okay. Empty arrays by default. Like count default 0. This should also be default 0. Okay, text string. Awesome. We need some embedding stuff now, which is we need to have some relationships. So original post. So if I write original post, right? Which is like if this is a repost of a post. So if I am just retweeting, right? If I retweet, then it will be a reference to another tweet. So I can do original post, which should be of type post entity. And it has to be one-to-one relationship. One can be a repost of one only. So one-to-one relationship to type actually post entity basically. Inside one-to-one, we either write some object type something like this and inverse side options and all. So just this one should work. Should be of type post entity. Original post. Reply to it could be a reply to another post as well. So we would actually have a very similar reference to reply to another post entity like this. A couple of things. The text, we must add length 240. Nullable false, can't be nullable. Images again, default is empty array. Yeah. So let's run this one. I'll just add two app module and in the entities add the post entity. Let's check now. So we've got the post table. If I look at the post table, foreign keys did not get created as it seems. So ID got created, text, images, like count, repost count, all that is there. The one-to-one entity, these did not get created, it seems. Let me quickly check 1:1. How can we do that? Can we use OpenAPI with Nest Swagger? Yeah, obviously we can do that, Pulkit. I haven't added that yet. We'll do that. I mean, right now we haven't actually OpenAPI 2 or I think OpenAPI 3 is what is by default gets used if we add the Swagger entities. So right now I've generated all the endpoints. I can actually do that. I'll do that right now. Let me quickly check why this one-to-one entity did not actually, the original post one did not work. So let's go to this. One-to-one relationships, how to work them out, one-to-one profile. Oh, it's supposed to be a join column. I did not write that, my bad. Join column here. Then if I write join column here as well. Right. Cool. Let's see now. Yeah. So there is original post ID, reply to ID. We wanted them to be underscored once if we do that, so then we can actually change that as well. Join column and supposed to contain options name, right? Yeah, better now. So original post ID, UUID like this, reply to ID, everything is with underscore case on the database side. Can be null. These can be null obviously because with the text we have one option. If a post is only a repost, then the text can be null, I guess. So let's not keep it nullable false. In fact, only thing is if text is also null and original post is also null, then we would have a bit of a problem actually. But that's fine, I think. If both are null, those are not valid posts technically. We'll have to make a check for that on the application layer. Just made it not null. Remove the not null parameter. Seems to have not updated. By the way, if you want to forcibly update the table completely, we can go to app module and here we can just write, drop schema true. So it will drop the table and create it every time. It's not a good thing to do. Apparently, still not null is not working. So text length 240. I just add manually true. That's fine now. Can be null, right? I'm just adding nullable to true because if text is null and original post ID is something, then it means it's a repost, right? If original post is null, then it means it's a fresh post. But if it's a original post ID is some entity, but there's also some text, it means a quote tweet, as we do on Twitter. When we quote tweet, we quote one tweet, and plus we add some our own comments also to that. So that's what it would be like, right? Okay, so that's what our post entity is supposed to look like. We have other entities to build. We need the hashtags and the likes and the hashtag post. So we'll just get there. Pulkit asked a good question. I will actually cover that. So let me just push the code till here. Add post entity. How to add the Swagger stuff. So here there's, I think, to add Open API specification, we can add a NestJS slash Swagger. And right now we are using Express in our app. We can use Fastify as well, by the way. And then let me switch to Fastify. The difference between Fastify and Express is, Fastify is a faster web framework than Express. And there are some benchmarks also about it. Fastify, it's a faster web framework, and there are some benchmarks here which says that this was run on Intel Core i7 machine with 4 gigahertz 64 GB RAM and running Express, API, Restify, Fastify, etc. So as you can see, Express ran around 16,000 requests per second, while Fastify ran 70, well, almost 80,000 requests per second. So that's 5 times faster. So if Fastify is 5 times faster, it's a better thing to go for. So let me, if I want to use Fastify, so how to use Fastify? We do this. We install fa platform Fastify in our code base. I'll stop this for a while, and we'll remove platform Express. Actually, we won't need Express. Types of Fastify is not a so. We don't need express here, and we don't need the types for express either, I think. Yeah. So I run again. Okay. Now, to use Fastify, what are we supposed to do is we have to change the adapter a little bit. So in my main.ts file, we have to import the Fastify adapter and Nest Fastify application, right? So in my Bootstrap, we basically change the code to this. We import Nest Fastify application and we import the Fastify adapter. So that's it, basically. I'm installing this prettier extension, which makes it easier to format files and all. Yeah. Okay. So let's see with Fastify if it runs or not, first of all, whether it fails or not. So apparently that's not a problem. It is running fine with Fastify. Okay. Then to add that Swagger UI thing, so why do we want to add the Swagger stuff? When I add it, we'll see. You'll get a very good API documentation of our project automatically. So I'll just add this Fastify Swagger. Just add this. GitHub link. So this is the GitHub link. I'll just put it in the chat for you guys as well. There you go. That's the GitHub link. Okay. Okay. So yeah, let's install the Fastify stuff. Okay, we did that. Then here are some of the changes we need to do. So we have created the app here, right? Here's the app that has been created. Before we start app.listen, we add some code here, which is we create this config and document and Swagger builder stuff. So new document builder from Swagger, Swagger module from Swagger, and yeah. So we add this document builder stuff here. Title, I just add move API. Okay. Once you're done that, then if I just rerun my project, if I go to slash API now, it shows me all the endpoints that are there. It documents all the endpoints to me, which is pretty fantastic, you know. User slash username, user slash user ID. So everything that I created here, what all endpoints I need in my project, they all get automatically documented from my project pretty well. In fact, it allows you to try those out as well very easily, you know, execute that and, you know, get those endpoints easily, you know. So all the endpoints that are created, so complete UI for that is generated, which is pretty useful actually. A couple of things we should add when we are generating an API like this. So we have this API tag stuff. So how to add types and parameters, right? We can add this API tags thing, which would categorize things very nicely. So I just go to user controller and I add API tags property here. Get in the post controller, add that as well. And in the hashtags controller too. What happens if I do that is if you look at the API file now, things get categorized well. These are all my post related endpoint. These are all my users related endpoint. These are all my hashtag related endpoint. So tagging works very nicely in this case. Okay. API parameters like these, post ID, what to do about those? So if I go to say the users controller and there is get username kind of stuff. So for that, there are types and parameters. And the param should have worked here. Okay, why did that not work? So we check that. Oh, we can do it like this: param username as username, and then we can just directly use that. So if I do it this way, user slash username, should have, okay, apparently did not. Yeah, so it does this thing, user slash art username. It will create this string username thing. When we try it out, we can pass Arnav here and execute it. So it makes the request as user slash at the rate Arnav like that. So all of your parameters, you can define it like this properly using the correct string. Then what will happen is that in your API document that is generated, the variables are properly available where you can add your correct variables and try things out accordingly. Right. So in fact, wherever there is param like that written, we can fix those ones. There's a bunch of places where it is written. Okay, I think all of them should be working correctly now. Yeah. So they're all injectable params inside your API docs. So in fact, you don't need even Postman to try out your API anymore. You can actually use this page to try out your endpoints now, right? Whatever endpoint you want to do, post slash post like that, all that stuff, you can try those things out very easily like this here. Okay. Cool. So it sounds good till now. So we have got our user entity. Couple of things we have not yet added actually. The post must have author ID. Did not do that yet. Post should have author ID here. This should be a many to one relationship because many posts can be written by the same author. I can write a lot of posts, right? So whether the relationship is many to one or one to many depends on which side we're thinking. Okay, so we are writing this relationship within posts, and we are thinking what is the relationship would be from post to author. A post to author would be many to one. Many posts can be written by the same author. One post can't be written by multiple authors, so it can't be many to many. It can't be one to one because we can't let people create only one post. We have to allow them to create more than one post. So post to author, we will have a many to one relationship because of that. Okay. So many to one of type user entity and should be I guess yeah. Okay, so it has got original post ID, reply to ID, and now an author ID as well. And it has a foreign key of author ID references user.id, original post ID references post.id, and reply to ID references post.id. So that's our post entity is now mostly done. We need to have hashtags entity and likes and hashtag to post. We need a mapping table, etc. for these as well. So let's go ahead and do those. In so yeah, Siddharth, actually, we can use a lot of kind of databases. I mean, Postgres is one solution. We can use something else as well. I'm going with Postgres because the indexing and foreign keys would be easier to make using this. Postgres themselves, Twitter themselves, what database they are using for all their posts, they actually use multiple databases. They have SQL databases for actual data, and then they have NoSQL databases for caching. That's how they do. So you can have multiple options, right? So yeah, there is nothing wrong with using Postgres right now here because we can, very easily think of what kind of tables and relationships would be there. In fact, it's a better option than going with something like MongoDB because there you have to embed the relationships rather than having proper foreign keys. The queries would be faster. So that's why you're doing that. This is not Angular, Fascio has asked. So this is a backend framework, NestJS, which the structure is very similar to how Angular is. written. Some of the contributors are the people who contributed to Angular as well. So if you have used Angular, then it feels very similar to write code, but the project, it's not an Angular project, it's a backend project. So we're building an API here. Okay. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll wrap up today's session here. We all have been live coding for almost 2 hours, including the last session and this session. I will add some, issues and enhancements and features that we need to build in the future in this project. And like I mentioned in the last stream, please join our Discord server. So it's on discord.gg/scalar. That's where the Discord server is. There is a channel on our Discord server for talk open source. That's where we discuss all the open source projects that are going on. And for anybody watching this video live right now or later, if you want to participate in many of these open source projects that are going on, so there is this open source projects repository. Under that, there's a discussions part where you can see that we have a bunch of ideas that people have submitted, and some even I have submitted, and some of them we will pick up and turn it into projects soon. These are the projects that we're working on. One is URL shortener, which will become Scalar's official URL shortener. We are gonna intend to deploy it very soon on sclr.ac. We have this domain, and we are building this Moo, which is a Twitter clone, which has the features written down here. The database schema is also documented there, and the API that we need to build that's there. So we are doing this very soon. We will start working on the front end of this as well. We will build an app and a front end website for this as well. Okay. So yeah, that's about it. So let's catch up on the next session. Thank you for watching.
Hey folks, welcome to the Scalar live stream for open source project once again, and I'll just continue with the Twitter backend that I was building using Node.js and TypeScript, and you can go to discussions on Scalar Academy /open source projects, and there's a thread for Moo, which is like a code name for the Twitter clone that we're building, and you can read up about what's the product requirements and what are our database entities and structures and what are the APIs that we need. That's all defined there. You can watch the last 2 videos as well to get more idea about what we have built till now. This is the source code is available on github.com/Scalar Academy /Twitter backend node. I'll drop a link to this in the description of the video as well. A bunch of stuff we have actually already built, so a lot of stuff is actually in to-do as well. So I'll just open up my recording right here. I think one last bit I had not committed, so I'll just do that. This is not this. I think okay. So what have we done now? I think we have created a controller for hashtags, etc. So so just create the skeleton controllers and just right. So there's a bunch of stuff that's still to-dos. Actually, we have the controllers in place. I just added a workflow file as well for the Node.js workflow, which builds the project. So every time I make push, there should be a build that happens. I think that's happening. There's a build that's happening. Okay. So what stuff that we need, and what's getting built, and so on and so forth. I think we should put So a couple of things. What license do we have here? We haven't had license here, so do those things. If the README still is of NestJS, and we need to progress with building out the controllers. So let me do all that stuff. Let me get the AGPL license. Now that these are also important stuff that you need to do when you're working on an open source repository. Okay, you should have a license. So I've added the AGPL license here. In my README, I should add a should delete that stuff. This stuff is correct. I'll write like sort of what's project roadmap, or what are the things that are left to do in this project. We should add some stuff like that as well here. So a bunch of controllers are working and some are not working as well. So hashtag controllers, if you go and see, so we have to add the logic here. We have the user controller again, a lot of to-do stuff out here. Okay. And we haven't really built out the services part yet actually. So we have the user entity, which is the user database stuff. We have not built the user repository. So let's go and build out the repositories. Okay. So how do we build repositories? So users, and we can create new file users.repository.ts like this, and export class we can do user repository extends repository. I think I have to create a generic type of repository. Repository user entity, and yeah. So for now there is not much here. Just select a formatter. We will add some functions here as and when we need, but for now I'm just going to create a repository which will just extend from the repository data type here. So what do repositories do actually? There's a repository pattern which helps us. So working with repositories, you create a repository like this, get repository, and then you can do find one and stuff like that. Okay, so anyway, we are getting to that. So that's the user repository. We would need something called a user service as well. So build a so how to build services, right? So let's go to NestJS docs. What are services and what do they do, right? So there's something called services should be there, right? Service is like a cat service, something like that, right? What are so providers are fundamental concepts. Okay, providers provide data to controllers. They can be injected, and then they can be dependency injected, right? So, these are a lot of abstract concepts if you have not done object-oriented programming a lot before. But let's go ahead and build it. I'll just build it out, and you can probably get an idea of what services can do, right? Essentially, to give a little bit of idea though, right? So if I try to show this in form of a diagram, so here's say your DB, okay? So that's your DB, okay? This contains the information, okay? That's your database. Let's just call it DB, right? So there are user entities here. So what you do is it contains a table, right? So something like this. So so there's gonna be a user table in the DB, right, from which we're gonna be fetching data. Now the entities that end up existing is I think first of all there is, say for example, your API layer, okay? So this is your API layer, right? I'm just sort of describing this as the API layer boundary, okay? Just make it a little thicker maybe, right? Right, so some request comes in via the API layer, okay? Get users kind of a thing comes in, right? So somebody says, get /users. This comes to the controller essentially, okay? So so it first hits your controller, okay? This request comes in. Now you have your user entity, which sort of represents every row that's gonna exist inside the table, okay? So you create a repository. The reason you create a repository is sort of I'd say if I just bring it and put it to the back, or make it maybe a little bit transparent, okay? So fill, if I don't fill it, okay? So the user repository is sort of the code via which data is sort of fetched from right. So the user repository is the class inside which we have got methods like save save a row of users, or create a new row of users, or delete a row of users, update data inside a user row, stuff like that. So that's in the user repository, okay? We have the controller. That's why we create something like a service, okay? Now what happens is that when the server starts, you inject the what we do is we inject the repository into the service, okay? This is the user service, and then we do is we inject the service into the controller, okay? So when get request is happening, there would be some function which we would basically call, which would be like get all users or something like that, okay? Which would trigger another function in the user repository, which would be like find all kind of a thing, okay? And which would basically trigger something like select star from users, okay? So hopefully you can understand this now. Just if I narrow down the sides a little bit, okay. Yeah. So get request comes. So initially when the server boots, this stuff happens, okay? there's a database inside which there's a user table. We define a user entity which defines exactly how the roles are going to look like. We create a user repository which contains the methods via which we interact with the user table out there. Okay, and then what happens is that we inject the user repository into the user service. The user service contains the business logic of our code. It can do validation and sanitation and all that stuff. It will make sure that the username is of correct format, or any of those things, right? And it will call methods from the user repository. Methods from the user repository look more like find all kind of stuff. Okay, the service exposes methods like get all users or find user by user ID kind of methods, and which are then exposed to the controller, and then the controller is the entity which serves the API request. Okay, so these things are basically the dependency injection. So whenever the server boots up, an object of the user repository class is injected into user service, and an object of the user service class is injected into the object of a controller. Okay, so let's quickly go about in the code and see how this is sort of going to look like. Okay, yeah, awesome. So the repository, we don't need anything else right now here. How do we create a service, right? So we can generate a service, NestG service kind of stuff. So we can do, I believe, NestG service users. Okay, should generate a user.service. Yeah, it should have generated user.service.ts. We'll create a private constructor here, and here we will pass private user repo of type user repository. Okay, we'll import this. By the way, I'm using GitHub Copilot here right now, so my autocompletes are going to be pretty fantastic, I believe. Okay, so we inject the user repository here. Okay, let's see if right from the controller level, we need get user by username is something that we need. So to do get user by username or get user by user ID, we will need similar methods in user service as well, right? So let's say we construct a method here, public should return sort of array of users, public array public get user by username. It should give the username of type string, should return an user entity object essentially, right? Right, and this can be async, right? And this sort of method, what it will do is return await this dot user repo dot find user by username, but it does not have find user by username. Instead, it has find one. Okay, where we can pass basically the username. Okay. So this find one takes either an option. The find one options can take something like a where clause. I think we can pass a where clause, and inside the where we can say that we pass the username here. Okay. So the where clause would take find conditions of type entity, and we're gonna find users with username or something like that. Okay. So that's what my user controller would then call. So what I will do is inside my user controller, I will inject the constructor, and here I will create the constructor and put the user service inside that. Okay. Now, this user service would be useful to me here, where I would do, const user equal to use. I think this should be async as well, and then then we do await this dot user service dot get user by username. We do this, and if user does not exist, then we have to send a 404 kind of a thing, right? We will do that as well. Okay, let's just say throw new error user not found, something like that, and otherwise we return the user object here. Okay, so instead of returning the user object here, we can do is also create something like a HTTP response kind of an entity, right? So we'll see that. Let's just put this as any right now. Okay, and let's just return a user. Okay. We have to import the user service, I believe. The user service should be export class users service. Okay, so we should have this as user service. Import that. Right. Okay, let's try that out quickly. Right. What do we have here? I think we can run it and watch mode, right? Start debug, right? Should open on port 3000 or something. Okay, user service has got some error. User entity is supposed to be so we did not get a bit of a problem here. Is that we have some injection problem. The injection problem is happening because in an app module we have directly put the controllers directly here. Instead of doing that, what I can do is I can do I'll just open another terminal tag and I can do nestg module. Okay, this creates a user module. Okay, it creates something called user module. Inside the user module now I can actually include in controllers, I can add the users controller. Okay, I can add providers, and inside providers I can basically add the user service. Okay, in the app module, what I will do is I will add the like it has done. It has added the user module here, and I will not directly inject the user controller here. Okay. Let's see. At this stage, I think we still have some issues. Can't resolve dependencies of user service. That's because user service requires. So let's see. User service requires user repository. Where will it get that from? That's also needs to be defined inside the user module. So imports, I can provide the user's repository. I think we should change this to users repository. Okay, still have another problem. User repository is a provider. They have to put it inside providers, and we have to export it as well, I think so. Yeah, that's how it looks like. Anyway, this has let my server to run, which is, I believe, running on port 3000, I believe. Right, slash users. So the path that I added was users slash at the rate username, like this. So user slash at Arnav. Okay. Something happened here. There was an error. Let's see what happened. Cannot read property find one on undefined. Okay, fine. That's the problem. We will investigate that. So it could not do find one inside the user controller. So inside the user controller, this dot user service dot get user by username, which does this dot user repo dot find one. So find one apparently did not work. Okay, that did not work because we can't inject repos directly like this. Instead, what we have to do is we have to design injection in a certain way. Okay, so how do we design that injection, right? Let's see. So wherever we need to inject the repository, we basically need to write this code, the get repository code. Okay, so let's see how we can do that. Okay, and we'll do a custom repository injection. So I think there should be about custom repository. How to inject that? We have to add this annotation first of all, which we haven't done. So we have to add entity repository annotation on the users repository. So you have to write entity repository of type user entity. That's an annotation that we need to write. Okay. So inside the module, we have to add for feature kind of thing and author repository. So in my user module, I will have to write imports. Type rm module dot for feature, and I will have to write user repository. Sorry. Yeah. So we have to generate the user repository using dependency injection like this. A lot of steps actually, but it does one important thing. We don't have to manually create the repository in our code anywhere then. Now this is done. Let me just try to hit this again and see what we get. Did we still get an injection problem? Seems you're still getting an injection problem. Let me just read what else we need to do. I think we don't need to do this. You have to make author service injectable. Is it injectable? Well, it is injectable. And we have made an imports for author repository already. Interesting. Okay, let me quickly check again. You have to create an entity repository. So delegate instantiation responsibility to Nest. Done. And inside author service, here to private author repositories, author repository. I think that's just all that we need to do. We don't need to do anything else, it seems like. There is an example. Let's see an example. Okay, so should be some sort of repository stuff that we can find out here. Okay. Users, there's a user module where there is user module type Y module for feature user, and there's a user repository. There's no user repository, it seems. Inject repository. We have to do an inject repository. Okay. What's that? Do we need to do that? So inside user service. I mean, this runs as a custom repository. Okay, seems we do have some problems here. just want to keep these things inside the live stream because that people get stuck, developers also get stuck on stuff like this, and I'd like to see how I figure it out rather than just see that people don't get stuck or something like that. But yeah, seems a little bit okay, what's inject repository supposed to do? Not using a custom repository, which is sort of sad. After uses repository. Okay, module providers, user service provide. Okay. So user service should not be injected here, I believe. Users module is coming in here. That should solve for that problem. User controller takes user service, which is great. User service takes inject repository, user repository. I'll remove that and just have this. And then we will see that inside user module, user repository is generated. I think this should actually work. And if I sort of, so we got a user not found, which is perfectly fantastic. Okay, that's exactly what I wanted. So that's fixed, I think. Super. We just need to now sort of do a bunch of other things, which is that's base entity. We have to create a base HTTP response, by the way, via which we can sort of wrap the responses out here. So inside inside my user controller, in this case I want to throw a error here, 404 kind of stuff. So let's see how we can do that. So how is 404 kind of stuff handled? Okay, not found, built-in HTTP exceptions, right? So how can we generate a not found exception? So we can generate a not found exception like this. If we do that, then when I hit this, I get a 404 user not found, which is perfectly exactly what I want. Okay, right? Sounds great. Yeah. Otherwise, we need to wrap it up in a HTTP response. So built-in HTTP exceptions are there. So how do we handle exceptions? So throwing standard exceptions, we can just throw an exception anywhere we want, and that sort of works. Custom exceptions can be built. We can extend HTTP exceptions to create sort of custom exceptions. There are a bunch of built-in exceptions which really love. Most of them would be something here. Do we have inbuilt responses? We will check that. By the way, I think in my code there is one little thing which I need to take care of, is that I think in the app.ts I had turned it into Fastify application, and somebody just added some commit here. to add Swagger. I think Swagger stuff, I believe, does not work properly here. So if I go to /API, oh, it's working. There was that Fastify stuff. Let me just quickly check. So, oh, this is the backend source code, right? Somebody had sent a pull request, which was written in Express format, but we are using Fastify here. I believe. Or did I not merge that person's pull request? I don't know. So somebody added response compression. So I'll just add a comment to them that can you use Fastify please, because we are not using Express. So I'll just tag him. I'll send them a link also where to do it from, right? So there's a compression with Fastify stuff. So I'll just tell him to drop there accordingly. Okay, so they can update their pull request sort of, with the Fastify one. Okay, now I think we're doing great. So we have got the user stuff working here. Okay, I'll just make a commit at this point. That what we have here is okay. Now, what does the user service do? It gets user by username. It's just through and through. But if you have to check other things here, we can do that. We can just, in fact, copy that. But yeah. User ID would be a number. Not a number, I think it would be a string, but yeah. In our case, user IDs are strings. Fantastic. I mean, GitHub Copilot can just, make me write this entire project, right? Yeah, so I'll just write some comments here. Description, find all users. Wow. Okay. What does member of do even in JS talk? I don't know. Okay, stuff like that. I don't need to do that here. It's already in the class. Returns a user entity, that's fine. Okay. Find a user with a given username. Find user ID, so you can add some descriptions here. So great. Let's do another function, which is what all other functions do we need? So user controller, we would need get user by username, get user by ID. This would be actually pretty straightforward then. Const user equal to wait, get user by user ID. Fantastic. Why does it say no? Change spelling. Cool. So same stuff here. If not user, then throw not found exception, and that return good, right? It looks good. I'll change the return type to something, I believe, for this user entity. This should be async, and this should be promise. Yeah. This is to create a new user, actually, right? And this is to update a user. So we'll do all that stuff as well. So how to create a new user? Create a new user with your details, right? Wow. I mean, GitHub Copilot is really great, actually. Promise returns promise user entity if user is created. Just go it right. Okay. So okay. Create takes an entity like deep partial entity, right? So something like that. Okay. So we take a user entity, and then the user entity must be of should have username, name, avatar, bio, follower count, followee count, all that stuff. In fact, we just need name, avatar, bio, username, and that should be enough for us to create that. Okay. We can create a user DTO, right? We can create data transfer objects. So inside your user controller, we can write, some classes here. Export class user create request body. This can be my DTO basically. To create a user, we need username, password. Copilot really amusing. I think I've been really loving it. We don't need that. We need password. We need name, avatar, bio. So we'll do name. Avatar would also be a string. Bio would also be a string. So that's user create request body, right? So here inside create a new user, we'll write API. I think we can do API body, and you can pass I don't know, type, and you can pass right. Other things can be passed: schema, description, enum, required, stuff like that. Okay. Sort of. So I do it like this, just going by it, and if I just restart my server, I think it's already started, right? So if I go to API tag here now, so users, create user, right? This one, post, request body, try it out. So request body is supposed to be of the type, is it gonna try to do some autocomplete? I don't know. Let me see how to do API body, right? So with OpenAPI, if I have to define types and parameters, so body is supposed to be of certain DTO type. API body. Okay. So if I do it like this, instead of this, just do body. Create user request body like this, right? Declared but not used is fine. If I refresh this, so create request body is supposed to look like what? Does not take those values. Let's see why not. We have to put some further annotations, I believe. So body, then create carrier DTO. It should have API property tags on it, right? So I'll just do that. Okay, awesome. So it's supposed to have username, password, name, avatar, BIOS, these kind of things it needs to have in the request body, and that's the definition of it's a request body, right? So when you're creating it, we can have some of the things as optional, I think. So username, password are needed. Name is sort of optional, I believe. We can make name optional, we can make avatar optional, and we can make bio optional as well. So these can be added if we need to. So if I refresh, then you should see that these are not required, but it does not show it that way. So okay, does it become not required now? Yeah, it's not required. So yeah, I think it should catch the nullable types automatically, but somehow it does not. But yeah, check it anyway. Oh, we can do API property optional. So that's sort of, I think, better. For this one, should do my job still, right? Yeah, okay, awesome. So if my body is of this type, username, password, name, avatar, bio, string, blah blah blah, right? It's just saying that, and I'm expecting in user service that when I'm creating a new user, then I get a deep partial of user entity. Right, so partial is basically something partial like that, right? So when I call this from the controller, okay, making it async again. So const user equal to wait this dot user service dot create user with the create user request. Okay, should work, I think, right at this point, and it should return a promise user entity here. Great, right? Except that if I will just return user from here. Okay, is the user created or not? Let's see. Right. We can see the user will get created or not by just trying out this endpoint. Let's try it out. Pass username Arnav, password Arnav, not pass name of bio, and just execute that. Some stuff happened, I believe. This execute. Awesome. So I think user got created. Did the user get created? Let me quickly check, right? So let's do PSQL. This is MoDB, right? So select star from users. Wasn't created. Why was it not created? We'll have to check. I think we have to use save, I believe. Let me try it out again. Okay, we got an error. We have to see why the error. Null value in column name violates not null constraint, so name can't be null actually. Right. Okay. One thing that can't be null, let me just quickly check the entity. So apparently name can't be null, as it looks like. Can I just do a see? Okay. If I say bio and avatar can be null, so I'll have to write column. And can I just do this? I don't know, does that work or not? Apparently does not. So we have to do a default supposed to be not null, I guess. So pass a column nullable stuff here. Bio can be nullable as well. Name can be okay. So name, bio, and avatar can be null now. If that's the case, then I should be able to inject this now. So let's execute one more time. Fantastic. Table gets created. Let me do select star from users. Got it. Just get created. Okay. So that's the user ID. Can I fetch with the user ID and can I fetch with the username now? So let's try that out as well, right? So get user by username, pass Arnav here. We're getting that. This is the user ID, right? So the user ID is basically this. Let me try it out with the user ID as well. So get by user ID, try it out with the user ID, execute, getting it. So works. So get user by username is working. Get user by user ID is also sort of working, right? So fantastic. There's a lot of stuff, right? Quickly check if my recording is still working correctly or not. I'm almost an hour into it. Okay. Fine. I think I will end this stream here and we'll resume with the rest of the stuff in a different stream. Okay. Thank you for watching till here, right? Feel free to join our Discord. It's there in the description along with the video, right? Just under my face, I think it's probably shown that you can come to our Discord server and we can talk about this project and a lot of other projects. So we have got on the Scalar server, there is a open source open source channel. In the open source channel, we talk about these kind of stuff that we're making here. Okay. There are people online still. Great. So we can talk about projects that we make here. If you want to contribute, that's the repository. That's the discussion about this project. You can come and participate in the discussions here. There are people here who sort of very actively participate in the discussions, and this is the repository where you can go and find out issues, and you can create pull requests and stuff like that. Okay, so that's it. We'll catch you again in another stream. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. Hey, so just continuing with the social media clone that we're making. Welcome to the live stream from Scalar Academy. And this is the fourth video in the series. You should watch the first three to get some context if needed before this. So we're building a social media clone, calling it Moo. It's sort of a Twitter clone, and we are building the backend here in this video. We have a few entities that we know we need to build: users, posts, notifications, hashtags, and we have defined the database. The database schema is available. So this is the link. It's in the description of the video. You can find out where we have the sort of product requirements and the system design documented out there. So this is kind of how the database is going to look like. We have a documentation of the APIs that we need as well. Okay, so we have built a bunch of it already. So this is the project website, and a lot of the things are actually working at this point. And if I go to this project and I just sort of run this, just give me a second. So we have at this point, I think the get it's if you run it, if you just download that project, if you run it, if you go to localhost 3000/API, you should see the Swagger documentation, the OpenAPI documentation as well. And we have the users. So if you do sort of get users by sort of a username like Arnav, get that user object, so that's there, and get user by user ID is also sort of there. So we are sort of getting there, right? Post users is how I can create a particular user. Patch is where I would be able to sort of update a particular user. So those are the endpoints. Slowly we're building them, right? Great. So we have divided the project into hashtag post, these kind of sort of modules. In the last video, you might have seen I have turned the user into a proper module and added all the user related repository, controller, service, entity, everything. We haven't done the same thing with posts and with the hashtags actually. So I'll just go and do that. I will generate so nest so we can generate service, right? So service, I think. So yeah, nest generate service posts. I need to create a module first of all. So posts, and I will also generate a module for hashtags. And at that point, what I also will do is I'll go to app module, make sure that users module, post module, and hashtags module are added here. I will remove the post controller actually from here and the hashtags controller from here. Okay. Instead, I'll go to the hashtags module, and I will add the controllers here. Okay. So with using GitHub Copilot is pretty good actually. Like everything completes out with tabs. So if I write controllers here, I will have to add the host controller, right? Correct. At this stage, let me just quickly check if this has not affected the UI. So posts are still there and hashtags are still there. Okay, awesome. Right. So seems okay till now, till here, right? I was thinking we should add something like seeding scripts as well, scripts that would seed some initial information into the database or stuff like that. I'll do that later. For now, we are sort of doing okay. We got hashtags and we got posts. Okay, so let's complete the user stuff actually. So we need to develop some of the other user stuff here. So we have to I think fold all. Yeah. Okay. So right. So this is, I think, done. Get user by username is done. This is also done. Get user by user ID. Post user is done. Patch is not done. We need to do this one. Okay. Here, what we'll do is we will patch and user detail. So to patch and user detail, we need two things. We need the parameter, the user ID, right? That's fine. We also need the body of the user. So I'll do this, user create request body, and we would also have something like that. We'll have one export class user update request body like that. We go ahead and make it. Okay, so to update a user, we should be able to update sort of actually go with auto completing this, but not exactly this. So to update a user, what are the stuff that we need? We had some discussions about that already, I think. So to update a user, patch user, update bio name image. What are things that we allow updating? So we don't allow updating a username, and password can be updated, which is fine. Name of that bio, these can be updated, and then password can also be sort of may or may not require the password. Now we haven't really handled password handling till now anywhere in our API. We have to do that. Okay. So I'll add some to-dos for that. In fact, if you go to user service, so anywhere password handling is not added, so that is a major to-do, right? Anyway, so any of these things can sort of exist, and then they are all optional in this case, right? So this is a patch request. User ID could be one of the parameters that's coming in. Response would be promise user entity. That's what the response would be. It should be async as well. In fact, all of these functions should be async because we're going to be calling database stuff from here. We need a body which would be of type user update request body. Oh, I love GitHub Auto Copilot. I would say it really just sort of knows what you're doing. The AI stuff is really good. It sees that update user details is the name of the function, so it understands the body is going to be of update user request body, right? Anyway, so we would do is here wow, awesome. The user service should have an update user function which does not exist, so we have to go and create that. So we need to create an update user function. So I'll write the commands first for that. So update a user with give. Wow, fantastic. Returns user if it was updated. Wow, fantastic. So update user. This is just fantastic. Okay, so we have to first find a user. Const await this dot user repo dot find by I think we have to just do find one where ID is user ID. Okay, that's perfect. Then if not existing user, so I just sort of return null from here. Okay. Else what we're gonna do is great. Otherwise we can do await this dot user repo dot I think we can do an update. Can we do an update? Yeah. So what does an update take? So update takes criteria, which is supposed to be a find condition. And the sort of partial entity there. So we can pass sort of the find conditions, which can be where ID user ID. And second condition we can do is the partial entity, which is gonna be the user object. So let me just call this as new user details. So okay, so first entity can be find conditions, right? So how does save work? Let me quickly check. So saves, we can do it with save itself. I think it seems like we can just do it with save. So we'll do a bunch of things. So existing user dot ID. So this new user details can contain so they can contain password, name, avatar, and bio, right? So let's just say that we do this, that if new user details dot bio exists, then existing user dot bio equal to new user details dot bio. I just copy this line a bunch of times. So avatar, bio, we can allow change of name as well. And so password I'm not dealing with right now. So yeah, so we just change that stuff and then return await the existing user. Great. Oops, sorry. So we'll call update user and we'll check if that works or not. So do it. I'm just return the user, right? I think just return the user. Update user just takes update user details. That's it. It takes an user ID. We can pass the user ID. So rather than that, you do user ID, which is sort of a string. So we do it with user ID here. Yeah. So we got the patch request for user ID, updating, supposed to work or not. Let's see, right? So server should be up. Let me just quickly refresh that page. So if I send a patch request to update the user, so in the user ID, I'll just search for my user name first of all, right? So the username, if I search for myself, that's my user ID, right? And I will add a bio for myself. Okay, so I'll go to patch, paste my user ID there, and I will do is just update my bio. This is a nice guy. Okay. Okay, so updated. I get this is a nice guy stuff working. Okay, so fantastic. Update user details working. We need to be able to follow, not follow. These things would need authentication. So we need a way to assert that the person who's sending the request is a certain person. Then only we can do these ones. So these are still to do. We'll get back to this one, right? We want to actually sort of go and put a tick mark on the APIs that are done. So I'll just do that actually, right? So get user, this is done. Okay. Get user by user ID is done. Create a new user is done. Patching a user is done. This needed authentication actually, so which I have not done, which is sort of important. So I'll have to add a to do here. Is make sure that the user is as themselves. Okay, so I have to add that to do stuff there. This is not completely done. So is there a where is that tick mark? Is there a way to say that it's partially done or something like that? In progress or something like that? Maybe, yeah. Just write this. Okay, so it's in progress. Okay. Okay. What else? Cool. Next thing we can do is get post endpoint. We can actually definitely do that. Although there won't be any posts to respond to, which would be a problem. And hashtags as well. So let's go and actually start doing the authentication stuff. In fact, then which should start to make a little bit of sense, right? Okay, I'll make a commit here. That not here, and the other one. So the commit that I will make is that user edit works. Okay. Okay. Now, how do we handle login? That's the part that we will do now, right? So to handle login, I have to do a bunch of things. So there is no endpoint for login actually right now, right? So how do we do that, right? So to do that, we have to see now how to handle the password stuff. Let's do that. So I'll create something called user auth. I'll have to create another entity. Okay. So I'll create a module, NestG module auth. Okay. That's the auth module. Okay. I'll create an entity for auth as well, auth entity, and then I will create some auth endpoints as well. Okay. So an auth controller where we do the login stuff. So an auth controller will get added for that. We'll have an auth service as well. We will get that added. I'll create an auth entity as well. Okay, and we'll do some relationships with the user, and let's see how that goes. Okay. So we need two entities actually inside auth. We need user password dot so I'll do like passwords dot password dot entity dot ts and I'll do an sessions dot entity dot ts. Okay, right, and we'll have to create repositories for that as well. We'll see that. We might not need custom repositories in that space, but let's see. Okay, so for the password entity, we need user ID and passwords in the password entity. Okay, so we have got some comments, right? We got the base entity here, move base entity. So I'll do extend it from move base entity here as well. Right. So a move base entity has a primary generated column UUID anyway, right, which will get generated. We will put a user ID here. So there would be join column, user ID. In fact, I would just make it a user, right? This would be a one-to-one map. It would be a one-to-one with user entity. I think that should do. I don't know. I think this solves it. Yeah. It should obviously be unique and stuff, but I think that should be taken care of. This that be the password entity has a user object inside it, and we need the password itself. So that would be password would be of type string. It should be column of and we need some nullable is false. Unique is obviously not needed here. Length and all we'll see. So yeah, that's the password entity. How do we handle this, right? So okay, we're going to go to the user entity. Okay, just needs a one-to-one with. In fact, let's not do that, because when we fetch user, we don't want to fetch the passwords along with that, do we? And we do. Oh, you can do. I mean, we can do one-to-one, and how to do lazy relationships. So let's see. So when you do a lazy relationship, it can be basically a promise. So data type is promise in that case. So I have to do await on them. I have to do promise dot resolve and get an I have to do an await on them. But that's fine, I think. So okay, whatever. So let's just see. So if I do a one-to-one relationship with password, so it'll be a password entity instead, right? Okay, at this stage, if I okay, there's some errors. Unable to connect to the database. Use a password entity not found. Oh, I think we have to do is go to the app module and make sure that the password entity is added. Should be able to connect to the database. User entity. There shouldn't be a join column required here, I believe. So what to do one-to-one? Let's quickly check out. If it's one-to-one on one side, do we need the other side? That's the important part, right? I think we can delete this stuff from here. We don't need that actually. The one-to-one side on the password entity is sort of fine. So if I see tables, so there is a password entity hasn't been created, in fact. So why has it not been created? There's supposed to be password entity should be created. Okay, I think I have to write that entity passwords like that. We have got passwords. Passwords have password and a user ID, which is perfectly fine. That's exactly what I want. The user ID is supposed to be unique, which has not happened. Why? I don't know why, but can we add that here? Okay. So join column options, name, string. Why is it not defined as unique? Should have been defined as unique. It seems pretty clumsy to me that it's happening like this. Okay, can we do column? Make it UUID. Okay, so if I make it UUID here, and I make it unique, join column. Does that work? I think it does. Should have been unique. Oh, it was already unique, I think, earlier as well. I'm so sorry. I think we don't need to do this thing. Yeah, it's still unique. My bad. Anyway, because it's one-to-one, type column takes care of that. So we've got a passwords table, which is pretty fantastic. So okay, what else do we need? Just move my mic. Let me really check if my audio is still audio is audible, right? Yeah, fine. Okay. Let's go ahead. Got passwords, fine. What do we do about these passwords, right? So let's check upon those things and let's see. The other password entity, which is done, which is sort of fine. Okay. okay, how do we deal with when we're creating a user, right? So when we're creating a user, so we get to user service.ts, right? We want the password entity here, so that when we're creating a user, password is created, right? Makes sense. If we look at it from a different way in the user entity, if I just say that, that 1 to 1 it has with like password.user and okay. Fine. So in a one-to-one relationship, inverse side object to okay. If I make password and use a password object, right? If there's anything else to be done here, I believe there's some relation options to be done. In the options, we can have lazy true. What else can we have? Cascade. The cascade should basically remove basically boolean or an array. Okay, so I'll just set cascade to true maybe. Yeah, anyway. Okay, so we look at users does not have any relation to passwords actually now. Which is fine. Great. Now when we try to find a user, we should not find its password. It's something that I want to make sure of. So if I just execute that, we're not getting the user's password when we make a request, right? Which is sort of great. But then how do we add the password? So when we're creating a user, so we go to user service, and here when we're creating a user, create an user. So create save dot user. This user partial entity. So here's the stuff that we need to sort of deal with is user dot user password equal to user dot equal to user dot um, new password entity. I think I can do new password entity, and user dot user password dot password equal to user dot password. Yeah. So creating a new user, we can pass a password as a string maybe. This dot user create user request. Okay. Just separately the create user request dot password. Okay, if I try to do a create user request just like this, and if I try to save a user with password, let's see that sort of works or not, right? Okay, so okay, so let's see, try to create a user. I think there will be something going wrong because it will not be able to create the password entity before the user is created. I believe that's what's gonna happen, but let me try it out anyway, right? So let me just try that stuff out. So username, maybe if I try AG123, and password is also AG123 in this case, and I don't have a name of that in a bio. I try to execute that. I believe some shit will fail. Oh, actually it got created. But the password is getting fetched. If I try to fetch user by username with AG123 and execute that, it's not fetching the user password. That's fine, but when you're creating it, it sort of gets fetched, right? Because we're using that to save it. Okay. Interesting. Let me quickly check. Select star from passwords. Wasn't saved. Right, password did not get saved properly. I got two users, but the password one is not saved. We need to make some changes here, right? You have to change stuff up a little bit. Can do it like this. To take the password, that's fine. Can't do it like this. You have to create a new user and you have to pass the password in that user object. You have to pass the password service. You can make an auth service, apparently a password repository. So what we can do here is we can inject repository of password entity type private password repo password entity repository, sorry. Is that working fine? Is the injection working? Apparently password entity repository is not really working. Repository password entity inject repository stuff, it's not working. Okay, why not working? So for that we have to go to the user module, and inside the user module also add a password entity. Let's see, that works perfectly fine. Now Now in the user service, we had to do a bunch of different things. So we create a new user like this. Const new user equal to this. Okay. Then we have to do something else. So const password equal to new password entity. Then we do password dot user ID and password dot password. Okay, so create a new user, then we save the password, and then we return the new user. That's how we do it. If we do it this way, then I think we don't need the lazy bullshit here. I believe so, but let's check it out anyway. So now go to create new user. Let's try it out. So I don't know if G31 maybe I just do another user for myself, same password, just remove all that stuff, execute. New user created, Arnav G31 with the password Arnav G31. Let me just quickly check. Arnav G31 has been created. Let me check passwords. This password is still not created. That's sad. Why did that not get created? Because I'm an idiot. Because I did not write await this dot password report dot save. Not write that. Right, idiot. Anyway, let's then try it again. Try it out. 31. Same password. Okay, is passwords awesome? Password is saved. We would not save password in plain text. We're gonna cover that part pretty soon, but I think password generation is sort of saved, which is great for me as of now. Not really need separate IDs here or something, but anyway. So there's a password table. Makes a lot of sense, right? How to do login and everything, we'll try and look at that now. So I'll just add, okay. How to save passwords? I think we should not save direct password. We should save bcrypt. So I'll just check on type ORM. They have given any particular instructions about bcrypt or not. So let me quickly sort of, check that out. Okay. Is my face still on the video? Yeah. Any particular thing about bcrypt? Let's see. I just said use bcrypt as it is, which is fine. Nest itself does not provide any additional wrappers, which is fine for me. I think I like that. In fact, we'll see things. So what we'll do is, we'll do is with the auth module. We can use the auth module in the user module. In fact, okay. So, the auth module, I will add the password repository stuff here, and we'll have an auth service which would do some of that password saving stuff. So if we go to auth service, and if I want to inject inside here, if I want to add a constructor, and if I want to add a private password repository, right? And I can write, inject repository password, right? Which I need to import and oh, sorry, password entity, and this would be basically repository of password entity type. I don't need a custom repository for this one yet. That's that becomes that. Does it fail? It does fail. Password entity repository is sort of not available there, which I can fix by going to auth module and writing here that what did we do in the user module? We have added imports, right? So here also we'll add imports, and inside imports we will add type for a model dot for feature, and instead of auth service we will add password entity. Fantastic. What we do here is that inside the user some models can be global apparently. How do we do global modules? So we can do global modules. So we write @global. You can write @global like this, right? So let me make auth module global. Fantastic. So if auth module is global, then in my user module, can I remove password entity and it will still work? Apparently does not. Apparently does not. Sad. That's because we're using password entity directly in my user service. Instead of that, if we use the password service here, the auth service here, okay. So we'll go to auth service and we'll create a save password for user kind of a method there. Okay. So we'll create something like create password for new user. Password should be string, user should be some user entity. Let's take that. Okay. We can do user ID rather than that. Okay. So const existing equal to await this dot password repo dot find one. Where user ID, right? So if existing, we return an error actually from here, right? We can throw an error. What security policy violation event is that? Event, I didn't exception. Okay, an unauthorized exception or something like that, I think. This already has a password, cannot set new passwords and others create a password for user. So if existing, if it's not existing, then we do is sort of, yeah, const new password equal to new password entity, and we do new password dot user ID equal to this new password dot password equal to since we're doing some changes in the DB. I think in the main.ts we should have a line that, you know, synchronize and does synchronize update tables. Okay, anyway, check that. Let's come back to what we were doing, which is let's go to auth service. So create new password for the user, given a password and a user ID to do it, something like that, and okay. So if I do it like this, let's create password for user, and it returns like this. Then you can go to user entity, user service, and instead of injecting the password entity, we can inject auth service. Instead of doing this dot password repo dot save, which we have done here, we can do is await. So check that shit, and we can do is this dot password auth service. Okay, so this dot auth service dot create password for new user and pass we had to pass two things there, right? We pass the password and the user ID. So first the password, and then the opposite is actually better. So I'll shuffle the opposite here. So sorry, first the user ID, then the password. Great. So it pass So create a new user, and then we create a password for that user. Auth service we cannot inject into user service somehow. That's because of module stuff again. So I'll go to module and I will write exports. The auth service I will export in here, auth module, and exports. Awesome. So let's see. Okay, great. We have to create another user again. Post user, try it out. AG123 does any shit break? Doesn't actually. Let's see, passwords. Oh, fantastic. Password gets saved actually as well. So auth service is working perfectly fine. That's exactly what we needed. So when you create a user, auth service, fantastic. Now in auth service, we also need to add functions to verify the password. And here we would not save the password directly as a string. We will make the changes to bcrypt as well. Okay, so let me go there and we will add this thing. So npm install bcrypt, and we will also install the type definition for bcrypt as well. Okay, awesome. So npm install development. Awesome. So instead of saving the password directly here, we do is we'll create a private function here. There's a hash sync function as well, I think. The salt to be encrypted if specified, import star, import to hash sync. Okay. So use sync one. We should use the async one, I think. So just do password to hash, which would return a promise and string basically. Here, so I do is return new promise. Resolve. Oh, sorry. Resolve reject. And fantastic. So what do we do here? We do is use the hash function, which is coming from bcrypt, and in the hash function we have to pass the data as string. So we'll take the password as string. So pass password. Second is salt or rounds, which salt rounds could be a number. So salt rounds, let me just write here that public static, and I will write password salt rounds equal to 10, so let's make it say a constant. So then we do is okay. And there's supposed to be a callback, right? Oh, it's supposed to be a promise. That's fantastic, actually. Then, so we can just private, if I do match pass hash, so we do password of type string and hash of type string. Promise boolean. So here we do is return, and I'm going to do so. Await hash, or I'll use match. What methods are there? It's called bcrypt.hash and bcrypt.compare. Okay, so bcrypt.compare, I'll do, I'll do compare here. Password and hash, and compare should basically return it should return true, I believe. True or false, right? So awesome. Okay, so match pass hash is gonna check if the password and the hash match, and it should say true accordingly. Match password to hash. This is to create a hash from password. Now, what we do here is, instead of saving the password, we do is await password pass to hash password. Okay. Let's create another user and see what gets saved. Okay, so I hope program is running right. Yeah, so I'll just go and I will create another user, try it out, and so Arnav3131 and Arnav3131 username and password, they become, and if I execute, the user gets created. If I look at password, so with Arnav3131, this sort of long string gets created. So this was the first one we created, a second one created, but for this case, it's this password is getting saved actually, rather than you know, the earlier case where the string is directly saved. Okay, so this is the hashed and salted and peppered password, which is sort of a useful. Bcrypt does hash salt password. When somebody tries to enter their password again, we can always convert it back into the same string and check that this matches or not, but we cannot recover the password from this string. So that's why it's kind of super helpful. So we'll see more about how to match the passwords and how we can integrate the auth service with the user service more in the next video. I think I'll just end this one here, where I'll just write that sort of concept of saving passwords is kind of shared, right? Okay, so I think fantastic. It's a lot of great stuff done there.